Tell him, McCluskey. Tell him what time it is.
Little Hen says it's time to rock and roll.
All you people are so scared of me.
Come quietly or there will be trouble.
Man, that's just me.
I'm Batman.
This is Sparta!
There is a tiger in the bathroom.
I'm an excellent driver.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
Pop quiz, hotshot.
Keep the change, you filthy animal.
Hello and welcome to this week's Monday Movie Show. I'm your host Stuart and I'm also joined by Andy.
Good evening.
On a very snowy day. It's horrible hot
here.
where I am.
It's not here. I don't know why. It seems to be whenever there's snow in the country, I normally get it dropped on me buckets and buckets of snow, and I've had practically none. I've seen it try to snow here a few times, but I've not actually had any real amount of snow here. It's ridiculous. The whole world's topsy-turvy.
Yeah, it's really, really bad here, to be honest. We're not here to talk about snow. We're here to talk about films. And so we have 3 films to review tonight, and they are...
Quentin Tarantino's latest Django Unchained. The Sessions, which is a sort of a drama with some comedy elements in there. And horror movie VHS.
A portmanteau horror film. I just thought I would use a little posh word there. On top of that, we have
try and posh it up. It doesn't work. VHS. Well, it's an expired piece of technology.
Yeah, and it's a portmanteau because that's what the type of film it is. It's a portmanteau film. On top of that, we have some movie news in the UK box office top 10. But as usual, you can get us on the live chat on Spreaker if you're listening to us live. So let's kick things off with the UK box office top 10. Number 10, Parental Guidance,
which is the new movie with Billy Crystal in it. It is that one, isn't it? I'm just saying that. I'm thinking.
Yeah,
is that the right one? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's Billy Crystal and Bette Midler, I believe it is, as grandparents who are basically left with the kids dumped on them, with their grandkids dumped on them. It's a U-rated film, as far as I'm aware, which means that it's not really going to be that good. Because the fact is that for any kind of comedy, I think there's going to have to be some kind of level of not crassness, but for any kind of humour, especially involving Billy Crystal, you're going to need a decent level of things to get away with. And in a U-rated film, that's not going to happen. No.
Yeah, pretty much. It was one of those films that was released on Boxing Day, just so the kids could get into the cinema.
Yeah, I had the choice of going to see this or going to see Jack Reacher. So yeah,
I think you probably made the better choice.
Yeah.
Just to break away from the top 10, we've got a question here from Goonies Laserdisc. First time the person's listening to us live. They said best use of snow in a film. So anybody who's on the live chat, get your answers in on that.
Let's try and think about that one.
Yeah, something like Dead Snow or Jack Frost, not the Jack Frost with Michael Keaton in it, the Jack Frost horror film with the killer snowman. So something that for me.
I'm not a fan of either of them, to be honest.
Yeah, pretty much. Right back to the box office top 10 at number 9, Pitch Perfect.
Which is it's a not bad film. It's just that there's nothing especially brilliant and outstanding about it. You have one of these typical kid goes to college and signs up with the group of outsiders, which in this case is a group of a cappella singers, and joins them sort of reluctantly at the beginning, but of course, oh wow, surprise, she finds she really enjoys it and joins them and gets into it, and it makes a whole change in everyone's life, and it's just like, really, couldn't you have done something different? And in this case, no.
Yeah. And I've got to give a shout out to Miss Petite. I've been told that I've got to give her a shout out. I was told last night to give her a shout out, and I forgot at the start of the show.
That sounds like it's kind of like linked in with that film or something, because it has got the rather small Anna Kendrick in the lead role.
Oh well, coincidence. At number 8, Jack Reacher.
Yeah, a film which has not done as brilliantly as I hoped it would, but I thought it was a really good, serious thriller from director Christopher McQuarrie, who took over after he was also the writer and director of another film which he did called The Way of the Gun. It's very similar in tone to that, but it's obviously toned down so that it can get a 12 rating, which it has got a cut. I know that the BBFC cut it for about 2 seconds for a scene, which doesn't really matter in the film. And it's a good thriller. It's based on the book series, which is where some people have had an issue with it because the character described in the books is nothing like what Tom Cruise looks like. But for me, it worked perfectly fine. I thought it was a great thriller, and it was really well written and had a decent plotting to it.
Yeah, number 7, Quartet.
Which is the first movie directed by Dustin Hoffman, where he's purely directing it. He's not appearing in the film. It's a group of sort of old age, kind of retired opera singers that all live in this building, which has been set up for retired opera singers and older opera singers, and they find that they have to then essentially bring the band back together so they can then save the building from being sold off or knocked down. Not entirely sure, but it's doing really well with older audiences. Similar in the way that I forget the full title of it, Marigold Hotel.
Best Exotic Marigold Hotel.
Yes. It's doing well in the way that movie seemed to do quite well with an older, more mature audience, and it's still hanging on. I mean, it's now been out for several weeks. It came out, I think it was a week after things like Jack Reacher and Pitch Perfect. Sorry, Jack Reacher and Parental Guidance, which is still above in the top 10.
Yeah, at number 6, a new entry for Texas Chainsaw 3D.
Which I have no interest in, so you'll have to fill in this since you've seen it.
Yeah, if you'll notice in the top 6, every one of the films has taken more than $1 million, which is quite remarkable considering, but... Yeah, Texas Chainsaw 3D, it's supposedly the true sequel to the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That's the way the director John Lussenhop has described the film, and if you've watched it, then you can see why it isn't. Honestly, it has practically very little in common with the first one, and if they decided to do that, it would have been a better idea to get the same actor who played Leatherface in the first film to play Leatherface in this one, but they went with somebody completely different. There's some really interesting concept art going around where the original idea for the new Leatherface, that would have been much better if they went with that. This one is just, it's very lackadaisical. It's not scary at all. The 3D is horrible. It's just not a very good film whatsoever. At number 5, The Impossible.
A real surprise that how much of an emotional effect this has had on myself and had on people that I've heard stories. I've heard horror stories of people actually passing out from it, watching it in the cinema. And it's rated 12, but it really should be rated 15 as far as I'm concerned. There's sequences to do with it's the whole thing of the family that were in the tsunami of 2000. I keep getting this year mixed up. 2000 and which one is it? Is it 4 or 7? It's 2004. I don't know why I keep thinking 7. But the family that got caught in the tsunami of 2004, where the family had a family of 5 are separated because of this happening, and it's the story of the two groups of them as they are then surviving after the horrendous experience of this and trying to find each other in amongst the chaos of it all going on. A really great directing job done on this film, especially that it is a low-budget film and it doesn't look it. And great performances from Naomi Watts and Ewan McGregor and I forget the actors, Tom Holland, who plays the 12-year-old son, the oldest of 3 sons in the family, and he is absolutely fantastic in this. He's sort of the central point of the film that you follow for most of it. And it's him as he's experiencing what's going on and going through that it really is an emotional film.
Can you remember the director?
No.
Juan Antonio Bayona.
Yeah, it's one of those names. You know me with names. I'm not going to get it.
I remember him because I think he's a really good director. At number 4, The Hobbit.
What more is there to say? We say about The Hobbit. It's dropped down quite considerably this week because of the number of new entries. I still think it's a fantastic film. I've seen it twice and thought both times absolutely loved it. I had no problem with the length or the running time of it, or people I know have an issue with the opening half hour, 40 minutes before things start kicking off. But I find that charming and great to get interesting introduction to the characters before going off on a journey. When you then are interested in it, you want to see them do it and you're happy.
At number 3, you went for Gangster Squad.
Which is unfortunately a bit of a mess of a film. It's a great ensemble cast. Unfortunately, it's not a great script. It's not especially well directed. There are some terrible problems that it has with editing, especially in action sequences where they are messy and difficult to follow. And it does build up to a satisfying ending, but the journey to the ending is riddled with problems and bumps that I really would suggest to wait for DVD of the film. It's one to see when it comes out on DVD. Don't get me wrong, because it's not an awful film. It's just not a particularly good film.
Yeah, at number 2, Life of Pi.
A fantastic use of 3D in a film that focuses on one main character for about 90 minutes of the film. And it's a really great adaptation of a book. I've not read the book, but the film has these moments in it which are extremely emotional, very gut-wrenching and really entertaining, and some great use of effects to create a Bengal tiger.
Yeah, it's a beautiful film to look at, and I was ecstatic the fact that the score, The Life of Pi, has got a nomination at the Oscars. It definitely deserves it.
I'm not entirely sold on that. I don't think it's especially brilliant. I don't think it stands out as brilliant. I mean, I may have to try and get hold of it and give it a listen again, because I've not listened to it since back when I saw the film, and I saw it early before it was released. So I may have to try and look at that again and see. I don't know.
Yeah, and number 1, and you went for Les Miserables.
Surprisingly, really enjoyable musical and that's coming from someone who doesn't like musicals. It's not a sing and dance musical. It is a singing musical. It's a singing drama, and it's really been brilliantly done by Tom Hooper, who did The King's Speech. He's shown that he is a great visual director. And he's put together a great cast with some issues that I have, as I said before, my review of it, of Amanda Seyfried, whose voice is really too high-pitched and made me want to scratch my ears out.
Yeah, I've seen it, and I completely agree with that. I just was really distracted by her, especially when you've got the scenes where they're all singing maybe different songs, or there's like a few of them, there's maybe like 2 different songs being sung at the same time. And you can hear her above everybody else. She's drowning everybody else out. And I wouldn't be surprised if people, when they were around her shooting that scene, they had earplugs in or something. Because she can really shatter glass with her voice. Anne Hathaway, I thought, was the standout. She was just amazing for what she
she's
did
not
with
in
the
the film
character.
as much as you'd expect.
Yeah, she's not.
She is
I
really
would say
noticeable.
about 15 minutes in total.
Yeah. She really does stand out for the scenes that when she's on screen, though. She is really good in it.
Yeah, quick, before we go on to the news, one thing that's missing from the box office top 10, finally, is Skyfall. It's not in the top 10 anymore.
Yeah,
it was in last week, but not this week.
Was Twilight still in last week?
Yeah, Twilight was in last week because of it's like Saturday showings and stuff like that. But yeah, Skyfall is not in.
Both of them out. The 2 biggest films of the last few months are gone now. So
yeah, and Skyfall's out on DVD in a couple of weeks' time. So
yeah,
right. Movie news.
Let's go on with this. Nicholas Winding Refn, who was the director of 2011's Drive, the excellent Drive starring Ryan Gosling, was due to be taking the reins of director of The Equalizer, the movie, which was based on the 1990s television series that starred Edward Woodward as a retired CIA operative. It's still to go ahead with Denzel Washington in the lead role, but is now in need of a new director.
I still think Denzel Washington's an interesting casting in that front. Nicholas Winding Refn, I think, would have done a brilliant job, so it'll be interesting to see who they get instead.
I mean, if it hadn't been for the fact that he has now gone, he is now deceased, I would have said Tony Scott, but maybe not. If that's the case, maybe getting back with for American Gangster's director, getting back with Ridley Scott. That could be interesting.
Yeah, maybe.
And my final piece of news is that the director Michael Winner, who is quite well known for directing the Charles Bronson 1974 movie Death Wish, has died at the age of 77. More recently, he has become well known for a series of insurance adverts for Esure Insurance, in which he aspired the phrase "Calm down, dear." No reason has been given for his death, but it's thought that it may be related to an infection he contracted in Barbados in 2007.
Yeah, it's sad news. He sort of like slipped out of the limelight because, like you said, he was more famous for you might as well say the insurance advert than he was for his directing. He was also a food critic for The Guardian and a few other newspapers, but Yeah, it is a shame that he's passed away.
Yeah, I mean, in more recent years, he seemed to have sort of gone from directing, but onto more celebrity. He had become a public celebrity. So, I mean, that's kind of a shame. But, you know, I mean, he lived to 77, which is quite a good year. So he had a good length of a good run.
It is. Right, I've got a couple of pieces of news. According to Deadline, J.J. Abrams and his production company Bad Robot have bought the rights to make a film based on the life of controversial Tour de France rider Lance Armstrong. The rider recently admitted to taking enhancing drugs during every one of his Tour de France wins, and also during the Olympics he took part in. At the moment, the book is at the proposal stage. However, as soon as it's finished, the film will go into production.
I wonder if they'll get Oprah Winfrey to play herself in the interview bit at the end.
Probably. I wouldn't be surprised if the film's 4 hours long and 2 hours of it is just Oprah Winfrey's interview.
I'm not really interested in it, to be honest. I don't care. I really don't care. I've had enough of it in the news.
A couple of people in the chat there. A US Danny Dyer fan says, I'll be skipping the Lance Armstrong biopic scandal. And Booger said, yawn. Exactly. Yawn. The showrunner of American Horror Story and Glee, Ryan Murphy, is set to remake the 1976 film. The Town That Dreaded Sundown. The film takes place during the spring of 1946 and centres around the real-life case of a killer who murdered 5 people in Texas. The film will be produced by Jason Blum, who worked on Paranormal Activity with American Horror Story's Alfonso Gomez-Rejon, set to direct with Murphy.
So it's not really a horror so much as just a serial killer thriller.
Yeah, he seems to handle that quite well with American Horror Story and American Horror Story Asylum. He's got a weird knack. He's a strange person, Ryan Murphy, because he does Glee and he's got that other comedy as well about a gay couple, and he's got American Horror Story there.
Oh, is he involved in The New Normal? Is that it?
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, I saw the pilot of that last week. I didn't think it was that bad, but I'd be surprised if it's still around next year, given the subject and the American audiences.
But it's a strange mixture. You've got those two things there, an American Horror Story.
He needs to ramp up something in pure Joss Whedon style then, because he's got the mix of the two genres down. He just needs to put them together.
Yep, and final piece of news, 3 more actors have joined the cast of Robert Rodriguez's prequel to Sin City, A Dame to Kill. Added to the cast will be Juno Temple, Ray Liotta and Jeremy Piven. It's unknown what roles these will play. The film is set to open in the US on October 4th, 2013.
Yeah, you know where I stand on Sin City. I actually do have it, but I'm not a fan of it. I just didn't get into it. I don't see how a lot of people did. I guess it has got a cult following, but for me, it didn't do it.
Yeah, I liked it. I thought I did actually like it, so I'll probably will go to see this one. Right, we're going to go to a break, and after that we'll have our first review of the night for Django Unchained.
We are the Holocaust.
Hello, Internet. Dalek Sex here. If you told me that you missed the last episode of We Are the Holocaust, Barry and the Kipper Part 2, and asked me to sum it up for you in 3 words, I'd have to pull a blade on you. But if you responded by pulling a piece, I'd have to go with Skeletor.
This is between Dr. Hamhock and me, Pony Brain.
Bum Justice.
You got a pretty ass boy that will get on real well in our prison or in the back of my squad car.
And Bouncy Rage. Isn't learning new words fun? Learn more words on We Are the Holocaust this Friday, 11 o'clock on iTunes and live on Spreaker.com. Follow us on Twitter at We Are, that's a letter R by the way, the Holocaust.
Right, so that's We Are the Holocaust live on a... Well, it's not live, it's pre-recorded live, kind of... I don't know what the hell they do. It's on Friday night at 11 o'clock on Spreaker, or you can catch it on iTunes.
It's harder than trying to describe that movie, Hysteria.
No, I think I would rather have a crack at that again to try and describe what We Are the Holocaust is about. Right, first review of the night, Django Unchained. Now, what we're going to do with this review, I don't want to spoil it too much. It's a Quentin Tarantino film, and Quentin Tarantino's films, they shouldn't be spoiled that much. So I'll just give you a basic overview of what the film's about. It's It's set in 1858 in America during the slave trade. That was when blacks had no rights whatsoever. They were just treated as slaves for white people. They were used, they were bought, and they did all the remedial jobs, all the jobs that white people just would not even contemplate doing. So the black people were captured and sold to the highest bidder just so they could be done whatever they wanted to be done to them. It stars Christoph Waltz, who plays Dr. King Schultz, and also Jimmy Fox, who plays the lead character of Django. And at the start of the film, Christoph Waltz's character is looking for these three brothers, because you find out during the movie he's not just a dentist, he's in fact a bounty hunter who hunts down these people and claims the bounty for them, whether they be dead or alive. And the opening of the film is he runs into lots of slaves being took to a local town to be sold off by these three guards, and one of the slaves is Django. He specifically wants to speak, Christoph Waltz's character, specifically wants to speak to somebody who knows about these brothers. And so he finds out that Django knows about them. He could have some information and he wants to buy them. And then a shootout happens and sort of like inevitable Quentin Tarantino thing happens. He then ends up getting the help of Django, goes into town, and a lot of people are really shocked to see a black person riding a horse into town, because it's not what black people do. Black people are slaves. They try to have a drink at the bar that's in this town, and the mayor gets involved, and you sort of find out that the mayor could be involved in something else as well. He could be a suspect for Christoph Waltz's character. And the rest of the film, what happens is they both establish a relationship in a way that Waltz says that he's going to train him up. As long as he works with him to hunt down these people, he'll help Django hunt down his wife, because his wife was sold to somebody who later on you'll find out that it was Leonardo DiCaprio's character. She was sold to him, and he wants to get his wife back, and if Django helps Christoph Waltz's character, he will help him get his wife back. There is an interesting scene about an hour and a half into the film which involves Django sort of like talking down to his kind. Here's a clip.
You mind telling me what the hell you doing?
I confirmed that Pernille is at Candyland.
Sure it's her?
He didn't call her by name, but she's a young lady with marks on her back and speaks German. Now, while it's not wise to assume in this instance, I think it's pretty safe. Point being, don't get so carried away with your retribution. You lose sight of why we're here.
You think I lost sight of that?
Yes, I do. Stop antagonizing Candy. You're going to blow this whole charade, or more than likely get us both killed. And I, for one, don't intend to die in Chickasaw County, Mississippi, USA.
I'm not antagonizing. I'm intriguing him.
You're yelling abuse at these poor slaves?
I recall a man who had me kill another man in front of his son, and he didn't bat an eye. You remember that?
Yeah, of course I remember.
What you said was that this is my world. And in my world, you gotta get dirty. So that's what I'm doing. I'm getting dirty.
And so it's sort of a typical Tarantino film. Like the first, what he did with Inglourious is the same kind of thing he's done with Django Unchained. For the first hour, even I would go so far as say the first hour and 15 minutes, it doesn't do as much as you think a Tarantino film would do. It's in the last part of the film, once it gets to Candyland, and once you see Leonardo DiCaprio's character who plays Calvin Candle, once it gets to him, that's when you might as well say all hell breaks loose and Tarantino goes full force at the screen. He does what he likes to do best, blows things majorly out of proportion. He's obsessed with doing that, Tarantino, and it's sort of it works for Django Unchained, because Tarantino does have this this knack of doing this kind of film. Like I said, you look at Inglourious, and so it works. My problem with Django Unchained is it's way too long. It's about 2 hours and 40 minutes, getting to 2 hours and 45 minutes, and there are parts of the film which could have easily been cut out. It's just way too long, and Tarantino does what he does a lot in his films and makes a cameo appearance in the movie, and it's horrible. He does an Australian accent. He can't act. He's a good director and a good writer and a good producer, even executive producer, but he can't act whatsoever. And he's proved it in Django Unchained. He's so miscast. Samuel Jackson's in the film. He plays a really, really interesting character, and I think he's gone full force with the character that he's given. Samuel Jackson, he has a lot of fun with the character.
Yeah, I mean he's amongst the primary cast members who are all giving absolutely fantastic performances. You've got Jamie Foxx, who is great as Django. You've got Christoph Waltz, who is fantastic as ever. I haven't seen anything with Christoph Waltz in it yet, apart from maybe the Green Hornet, where I thought that he was just completely wasted. But other than that, I think the rest of his other films I've seen him in, I think he's been absolutely fantastic, and he's just brilliant. There's a thing in this film. He's playing a character who, when you first meet him, and any time that any characters meet him, he's charming, he's pleasant, he's at least threatening. He's not threatening at all, and he then can be shown as being the most threatening person that you'd ever meet.
It's exactly the same thing he did with Inglourious.
Yeah.
He was. If you watch the first 15 minutes of Inglourious, he walks into that little house. And he's really... You don't think he's going to be a really nasty person, and then he just flips at the click of a finger. Yeah,
the difference is with this one, I think, is a lot more... the character's a lot more... He's happy with what he's doing. He's pleased with what he's happy... and it really does show with certain scenes. Leonardo DiCaprio is absolutely fantastic in it, playing this vile, horrible character. A very kind of thing you don't see Leonardo DiCaprio really doing. And I think it's a really great... It's a great moment for him playing this. Kerry Washington as Django's wife, Brumhilda, is a bit wasted in the film, but I think that's not down to her. I think that's down to the writing, because her character's not really brought into the film until sort of the last third, kind of like the third act of the film. The film, as I said, as you've said, in there is issues with the running time. The first sort of hour of it, the first act of it is perfect, wouldn't touch it. Second act really does need some trimming, and the third act, especially at certain points, needs probably a good 20 minutes cut out of it. And it's just that there was literally a point where I was watching the film, and it got to that point, and you could feel it in the cinema when it got to a certain point. All of a sudden, everyone just went, "Oh, okay, I'm ready for this to end." And that was still about a good half hour before the film ended. It really could have done with being trimmed down a little bit, and that is a shame. Other than that, though, it is a great Tarantino movie. I still don't think it's his best one. I think that personally, for me, Jackie Brown is my favourite. Pulp Fiction is my next favourite after that, and then probably Reservoir Dogs. But I think this is a good quality with Inglourious. Just like that film, I have an issue with the ending. Just the last half hour of both those films where they have problems.
Yeah, and he also needs to be less liberal with the N-word. I know, I understand that it's used back in then, but it was used so much in the film, it got on my nerves.
I didn't have a problem with it. I honestly didn't. I did. I get that it's been done because of the fact that it was done back then. It was said that was just common usage back then.
I know, but it was just overused in this one. Overused. I did.
I didn't have a problem with it. I didn't think it was. I think a lot of things like that with people are being too politically correct about their opinions of films because of things like that, and things like Zero Dark 30 to do with torture coming up. We have that next week. And that whole thing, I think people are being far too politically correctly incorrect.
No, it's not down to political correctness for me. It's just down to the fact that it got on my nerves. It would be like if he was just constantly using the F-bomb in practically every single sentence. I understand, yes, it was used back in those days, and no, it doesn't. It is a shocking word, but once you see it so many times in a film, it dilutes that word so much, it just really grates on you.
No, I don't have a problem. I think if this film had been made 10 years ago, people wouldn't have been harking on about that as much.
We need to skip on to the next film because we've only got 15 minutes left and we've got 2 more films to review.
Okay, let's go on to The Sessions then, which is a small budget film written and directed by Ben Lewin. It stars, the main character is a character by the name of Mark O'Brien, who is based in some part on a real character, a real person who existed, who is played by John Hawkes in the film. And his character is basically someone who, as a child, had polio, which left him in a debilitated condition where he has no real control over his body, no real use of his arms or his extremities. He's no sort of real muscle to his body, only able to move his head. And because of that, spends majority of his day living in an iron lung. For anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's a big machine that basically keeps the people alive. It's like kind of like a resuscitation machine that keeps them breathing. He can only live in this. He can only exist out of that for sort of 3 or 4 hours at a time on a ventilator. He's now at the age of 38, and life expectancy for him is not much longer, to be maybe 5 or 6 more years than this. And because he had this situation since he was a child, he's never had a sexual relation in his life, and decides that up to this point now, what he wants to do is he actually wants to arrange to sort out so he can actually lose his virginity. Because of this, he then has to arrange with, there is a group which has been set up for sexual issues with disabled people, and he's sort of gets in touch with them and arranges to actually see what's called a sexual surrogate, which is someone who does basically treat a person for sexual problems, but kind of like in a way of a therapist does, but much more intimately. Here's a clip.
So,
your money's on the desk over there.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
That was the wrong way to start off.
It really was. Shall we start again?
Please, you start.
Although the aim is for us to have sex, I'm not a prostitute. You don't have to pay me up front. I have nothing against prostitutes, but there's a difference. We can talk about that later.
I'm sorry.
The other thing is, there's a limit to the number of sessions we can have. Did Laura mention that when you saw her?
I'm sorry. I don't remember.
The limit is 6, but that gives us plenty of opportunity to explore. So, I understand you're able to have an erection.
Yes, but not by choice.
Do you know how many men there are who would give anything for a natural erection? Is this your place?
No, it's a friend's. The only bedroom furniture I have at my place is an iron lung.
So in that clip, you have the first meeting of him and the surrogate, who is Cheryl, played by Helen Hunt, who, as you heard in that clip, explains the situation of the things and how this will proceed with them. All the while this is sort of going on, you have the story being pushed along, helped along by, you have Mark's helper, Vera, played by Moonblood Good, and you have scenes where, in particular, Mark is taken to a church and he speaks with Father Brendan, who's played by William H. Macy, who is kind of like the other side of the coin of his kind of his own therapy, of him trying to help figure out what he's doing with this, why he wants to do this, and talking with the father about the situation of arranging to see a surrogate for these purposes. Now, it's a really good drama. It's surprising. I was surprised how much I did sort of get involved with this. There are moments in it where, because the issue of whether or not there is this whole thing of love or just sex, and the whole thing of developing connections with someone, and the problems that then arise from that because of the fact that people become intimate when they're emotionally intimate when they're trying not to be. It's a really good piece of drama, and it does suffer from a thing of that there are scenes in the film where there is a lot of nudity. There is quite graphic nudity, where it doesn't really need to be, and unfortunately the nudity, as nice as it is to see on screen, it's really a distraction from the story and from the characters, which is an odd thing to say, I know, but that's really just how it came across. Every time there was a scene with this, it was kind of like, oh, okay, we're going to stop now and have a nude scene and have nudity, and without that, I think it would have actually been a better film. But that said, it is a very good film. It is a small budget film. I don't know exactly what it is, but I know it's not. I can tell from it that it wasn't a big budget film. Great performances in there, especially from John Hawkes, who I've not really seen a lot of things before. And Helen Hunt, as always, is brilliant. William H. Macy is absolutely fantastic in the film. He's great as the kind of the father he wants to stay true to what he believes in the whole thing of marriage before sex and such. But he then sort of ends up talking with Mark and kind of giving his own opinion rather than what he believes in relation to his work into God. And it's one of these things that kind of these movies that kind of try and make you question that, and it kind of does.
John Hawkes was in Martha Marcy, Mia Marlene. He played the cult leader in that, and I thought he was brilliant in that.
I mean, the majority of things I've seen him in before this, I think, has been on television, and he was a good television actor. And as far as I'm concerned, after these couple of films I've seen him in, he's a good movie actor. There are some actors who can't make the transition from television to film. Jennifer Aniston, and he's not amongst them. He's a good screen actor.
Well, you might as well say they're all the entirety of the Friends casts. So I don't think any of them have made a really good film, to be honest.
No, I don't know.
David Schwimmer's a decent director, but
Courtney Cox was a great film actress before she went and did Friends, but I don't think she's been in anything since.
Probably the best thing that she's done is Scream, the original one. Well, that's saying something right there. Last film, it's a VHS. As I said at the start of the show, it's a portmanteau horror film. And what that means is, it's sort of, if you've seen movies like Creepshow or Tales from the Crypt or whatever, it's an anthology horror film. It's a film that features more than one story. And there is an ongoing arc through the film itself. They're known as portmanteau. And you very rarely get them in horror films now. They were more prevalent in the sort of like 50s, 60s and 70s. You had quite a few of them. And then they sort of like died with what Hammer was doing, because Hammer used to be obsessed with doing these kind of films. And they decided to get resurrected by a website called Bloody Disgusting, which is a horror website. And one of the people who works there, Brad Miska, has decided to write this along with 10 other writers. And the whole point of the film is it's split into different sections. The first part is called Tape 56, which centres around a group of people who are asked to hunt down this videotape. And that's the main arc of the story. It threads through the entirety of the film. Then, while they're at this place to hunt down this videotape, they discover numerous videotapes, which are the rest of the movies that you watch. The first one that you watch is called Amateur Night, and it centres around 3 people who take back this prostitute back to this hotel room, thinking that they're going to have sex with her, when in fact she holds this interesting secret. The second film is called Second Honeymoon, which centres around a couple who have gone on their honeymoon. Again, the wife has this sort of like really strange, twisted side to her, which her husband doesn't know about. The third film is called Tuesday the 17th, and it centres around a group of friends who go into the woods, so it's your typical woods things, and one of them, again, has a secret. So a lot of these is about a person in the group having a secret. The next film is probably got the most interesting title. It's called The Sick Thing That Happened to Emily When She Was Young. And it centres around a girl who's having a conversation with her boyfriend on Skype, and strange, weird, paranormal things are happening to her in there. And the last one, which I think is the best one, is called 10/31/96, and it's centered on Halloween. And these people have gone into this house thinking that they're going to get some like trick or treat kind of thing, but really weird and twisted and strange occult things happen in this house. And like I said, the main story, Tape 56, interleaves between this. Now, as with normal portmanteau horror films, the problem with it is you might get 1 or 2 of them that don't work very well, and that is the case with this. There are a couple of the films that don't work as well as the other ones. Like I said, probably the best one, I think, is the final one, 10/31/96, because it shows a flair with the film. It shows some ingenuity with sort of like what The Cabin in the Woods did with horror. This part of the film does exactly the same. So that's the best part. But then you've got like the ones which bring it down, which is Tuesday the 17th, which I think is quite weak. And the idea behind Amateur Night is being done before, but again, it's probably the weakest. It's interesting to also see that the sequel, SVHS, is being shown at Sundance at the moment, and they are trying to get distributors for SVHS to get it distributed across America and over here, and it's supposedly absolutely insane from early people who have seen SVHS. So watch VHS. It's out in the cinema now. Probably limited screenings. It's out on DVD next week. I'll quickly cover it then again. But it's an interesting horror anthology movie, and it's nice to see this kind of film come back. But the problem is, it could be overused, and I don't want it overused. And it would be nice if directors could take care with the films that they're doing, because in Portmanteau, like I said, you will have a couple of the ones that are weak, and it brings down the whole film if that's the case. And it would be nice to have a film like this where each segment is really good, rather than having one or two segments which prop up the rest. But it's still an interesting watch.
You're gonna love movie 43 next week then.
That looks like a sort of like a New Year's Eve kind of thing, where they're just getting a hell of a lot of comedy actors and just throwing them in.
Well, it's not just that. I mean, that movie has listed as the actual directors. There are, let's see what it is exactly. I'm just looking at it. There's something like 12 people listed as director, because it's all little bits that have been filmed and then put together.
It'll be interesting. Yeah.
Elizabeth
It'll be
Banks
interesting to see how it's. It'll be interesting to see how it's structured. Because this one, at least, it's got a proper structure running through it, and it'll be interesting to see if that one has a structure running through it.
Oh, well, at least this you had people. There was sort of looks like a constructed effort to keep it together. In this, you've got people though like Elizabeth Banks is listed in director, Brett Ratner is listed in director.
Oh God.
James Gunn's listed in director.
I like James Gunn.
But then also is Peter Farrelly of the Farrelly brothers.
Oh, one of the Farrelly brothers.
Yes. So that'd be interesting.
Well, it looks like you've got a film to review then next week.
I'm
not going to see it.
We've got a few films to review next week.
I'm not going to see that.
There are 4 big films out next week.
Yep, a lot then. So that's it for the cinema part of the show this week. We'll be back in a moment on Spreaker with the Blu-ray and DVD section of the show. If you listen to us back on the usual places, please leave us a comment, please leave us a like. Recommend it to your friends as well. Get as many people as you possibly can to listen to us. I know we're only a small little show, but the more people listen to us, the more happy we will be. And I might actually like more films. Not the case, though. I can't guarantee that. I might be happier towards films, but we'll be back in a moment with the Blu-ray and DVD section of the show.
I think you can agree to dislike them less.
Not going to be the case, though, because if I did that, people would definitely think that there's something wrong with me. So we will be back in a moment with the Blu-ray and DVD section of the show.